Welcome to the Multifamily Zone, where business meets family. We explore what the entrepreneur life looks like from the family perspective. Now here are your hosts, Julia and Gino Barbaro.
Hey everyone, this is Julia Barbaro, host of the Multifamily Zone podcast. I'm here with my husband, my co-host, and the co-founder of Jake and Gino, Gino Barbaro. Hey Gino, how's it going today?
Hi Julia, I'm doing great today. How you doing?
Good. We're having a great day today. You want to tell everyone what's going on?
We are going to Tennessee tomorrow with the family for 3 days. That's going to be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We're packing up. Everyone's getting their bags ready. Jake's baby is having a baptism, and I've had the honor and the privilege of being his godfather. So that's going to be awesome.
Very exciting.
So the 4-year-old is like all about Chase. So he's praying about him every day. So that's just an amazing opportunity to be part of Chase's life. Spiritually as well as emotionally, as well as hopefully being a role model for him and his big sister, Emma. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think the other thing is we're just having a great time here. The weather's great. We just got back from New York. I had gone to New York for a couple of days on business. And Julia, remember that? Julia used to get mad at me when I went on business, right? But now she knows it's painful for me. So that day and a half that I was separated, I went to a speaking event on a Wednesday morning. I went to an investor dinner Tuesday night, and it was really a lot of fun for me. I enjoyed it, but it's a lot of work at the same time. But I got home early. I was lucky that I got a flight out, got home in the afternoon, jumped in the pool with the kids. So it was a lot of fun. So what are we talking about today?
So today we're actually talking about communication. And it's not just communication with our spouse, it could be also with our children, but then we could even go further and say, with our extended family, with our coworkers, with our business partners. It's all about communication and how we're interacting, how we're listening, how we're speaking, how we're reacting to that.
So I love the question by Neil. Let's start off the podcast with a question from Neil Shope, who I saw Wednesday. Neil, love seeing you. Every time you bring the pain. All about life coaching, Neil. Just remember that. He says, sometimes she will ask a question and I answered it and she gets upset because I answered the question. I heard not necessarily the question she asked. So in communication, we each speak our own language. How can couples identify each other's language so they can ask questions in such a way that the other one understands what is being asked? Julia, you're going to tackle that one, and I'll ride your piggyback.
So I think it's important that we actually just start speaking the same language instead of having your language, my language. What is the language we could both speak? In communication, the first thing I like to talk about a little bit is just listening. Do you know anything about listening? Gino, you want to tell a story about that?
She likes the listening story.
I love this story.
So I don't know if we've got it broken down, but there's 3 forms of listening, Neil. And for everybody out there, the first one is subjective listening. That's when you've got the remote control, you're sitting on the couch, you're watching the game, and you're really listening, right? Or you're listening to a podcast and you're talking to your kids and you're talking to your wife. That's subjective. You're just sitting there, you're absorbing it, but you're not really paying attention. Active listening is like really when you're locked in with a person and you're actively listening. That's the second level. The first one is subjective. The second one is active. You're really listening. You're locked in. You're paying attention. But you know what? You still might be there going, I'm going to speak my turn next. So you're not really totally locked in 100%. Then the intuitive is the third one. I don't know, when my wife has 3 different names for it, so that we don't communicate well on what we call them. But the third one I like to call intuitive. And that's really your intuition. That's really being locked into the person, listening to them, really, really listening to them, and not having any kind of emotion, being detached and really knowing where they're coming from and really giving them your all. That's why I love coaching, because that's what a coach is supposed to be. Coach is supposed to have that intuitive listening where they're tuning everything out. They're detached from the situation. They're really listening. I'm really listening to what Julia is saying. Does she want me to go away for the weekend? Does she want me to stay? What are you really telling me? What are you really listening to me? And the intuitive part is really powerful.
Yeah.
So you can tell the story, actually. I love the
okay.
story.
So the story goes like this. About 6 years ago or so, I was pregnant with our 6th child. My husband, right? Or 5th. Well, anyway.
6th child.
My husband was also going to coaching school. So he was becoming a coach, and he must have just did the listening portion of it, because he came home, the kids were sleeping, we sat down, and he asked me this deep question. And as I began to talk, I became very, very uncomfortable. And when I looked at him, I I said, Gino, is there something wrong? Am I saying something wrong? Because he was just looking at me, and he's like, no, I'm just listening. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I've never seen that before from him. And at this point, we've been married for 15 years. And, you know, people are like, oh, that's terrible. But you know what? That's more common than we think. I think that we're so used to each other. We're around each other all the time. And we forget that we actually have to work on listening. And we actually have to, we have to make eye contact. We have to be completely free of distractions. To have your phone next to you when someone's telling you something important and their phone texts somebody and you actually pick up the phone to look at it, you're basically saying, listen,
you're not important.
You're not important. I need to take this. This is more important than you. So completely just get rid of all distractions when something's important. So one-on-one, eye contact. And it's important too, as Gino mentioned, let's not interrupt. Are we those interrupters where we're like, oh, you know, I know what you should do.
I am. I'm a big interrupter because I've got, my mind works a mile a minute and I've really got to calm myself down. Right. And I still do it to this day. I did it to her today. She gets annoyed at me. I don't mean to be. I'm just excited to talk to her.
Yeah. So there's two ways. You do it because you get excited. So I also have to know that. I have to know that that's what you do. And you really do work on it. I know you do.
So everybody, two things. I'm the boss guy from last week. So I'm the boss man. I like to take control, and I'm the interrupter. So I don't know. That's not good for me. I mean,
it's going well. I think this is going well.
Okay.
Just wait.
So continue with the story.
Okay. No. So my point is that okay. So we're just talking about listening. So another thing that when we're watching someone, we're not distracted. We're actually looking at the person and noticing, are they nervous? Are they upset? Are they trying to tell you something, but they don't know how to get the words out? And so that at that point, we can be like, you know what? I'm really here listening. I really want to know let me help you, work this situation out. Be aware of them. We want to be noticed. Everyone wants to be noticed.
So I have to cut Julie off right now or someone to lose my train of thought. But this is very important. We were recently diagnosed as me being the logical person and Julia as being the emotional person. So Neil.
Well, it's not emotional. Speaking from the heart.
Speaking from the heart.
Very different.
Okay, that's very different, everybody. I didn't know that, but it's very different. So I'm the logical person. So Neil, you may be a logical person saying, you know what, 2 + 2 is 4. And your wife may be the more, speaking from the heart, where she wants emotions involved in it. So I have to, and that's why I like business coaching, because it's more like, okay, what do you need to get done? Not, oh, why, or, what are your goals? Sometimes it's just easier to tell somebody, okay, let's analyze this deal, this is the cap rate, let's buy it. And based on looking at it from an emotional way. So it's really important, I guess, to find out where you're coming from. And if you're logical and your partner is being emotional, maybe you can take an emotional tack to it and look at it from their perspective, and vice versa. I'm really logical. And sometimes it's so obvious to me what people should do because I'm looking at it logically, but a lot of things, people say sell with emotion, close with logic. There's a point to it. You want to move people by being emotional, but then you end up by being logical. So see which one you are. Are you the logical one or the emotional one, and see where your partner is.
And so the next part of it, is the speaking. So this is another thing. So how are we speaking? How are we being clear about what we're trying to communicate? Because a lot of the times we talk to each other, but we're actually not completely honest, right? We say what we want, but not all the way, because we don't want to hurt their feelings maybe, or we just, whatever the reason is, we don't tell you the full issue. And that's important to be very clear with the person you're speaking. So, are we being critical? So is that person going to be like, I don't really want to open up to you because you're very critical. You're going to say something. If I say I'm upset, you're going to say, oh, you're always upset. We got to be really careful on both sides, how we're speaking, how we're listening.
You're on a roll. Keep going.
Okay. So here's my favorite, actually, is the reaction. So what is the reaction that I'm getting when my husband's talking? And I'm going to tell you a terrible story. It's about stonewalling. I don't know if is very subtle, but it can be very, very damaging.
Stonewalling. Okay. Is that Stonewall Jackson from the Civil War?
For some reason, I knew you'd say that. Okay.
Okay, you knew that. See that? Okay.
So this is what I'm talking about. You come into the house, and this is only like last year. You came into the house, you're like, Jewel, I got a deal. We closed it. We're going to make this much, blah, 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 going on and on and on. And I was reading a book sitting on the couch. You were so excited. It was so obvious. You just wanted to share that excitement with me. I literally looked up, I looked at you, and I said, yeah, that's great. and I continued to read.
That annoys the crap
that
out
is
of me.
so terrible.
Oh.
So terrible of me.
And I know the exact what you're talking about, because it was a great deal. We found it. I did a lot of hard work,
right?
And it's like getting money, refining it in, putting it in, and this is for our financial future. And all of a sudden, we can do whatever we need to do, and there's no excitement or emotion,
right?
Or being inquisitive. So where's the deal? How'd you find it? Even if you don't care.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of the
times,
right? You can't really argue with that type of person at that moment, because you're like, you're not interested. I am interested. I'm listening. Well, you're not really. Oh yeah, so you can't really argue with that type of person. That's why it's so damaging, because you kind of have the poker face on and you are pretending to be excited. So that really bothered me. After that happened, I was like, this is terrible. Why did I do that? And I thought, well, I don't ever want to do that again, but how can I share in his excitement, even though I'm not in the real estate business? I don't really know what he's talking about, but I want to share in his excitement, because he just accomplished something that he was trying to do. And, I should honor that, and I should be excited for him. So what can I do? I could be like, that is so amazing. Let's go celebrate. Let's go out for drinks. I'll take you to dinner.
See, I got to do the deals to pay for the dinner and drinks, right? So,
but let's go celebrate you and your accomplishments. And I'm really proud of you. And and that's very important. And I'm actually happy that happened, because that was a change for me, for the better.
So you have to be conscious about that also. See how I just cut you off? I didn't mean to.
No, you didn't cut me off.
It's important that you are conscious of your thoughts, right? Like Neil is being more conscious of his thoughts because he's asking those questions. Ask the question and you get an answer. The better the question you ask, the better the answer you're going to get. You need to be really conscious of your thoughts and conscious of what you're doing for you to do that. If Julia wasn't conscious of what she had just done, she was going in the process of finding out about this life coaching, like, well, what is life coaching? What does that mean? What are you doing? And I had shared that with her. And I think she liked it so much because she saw how excited I got about it, about helping people. She saw all those emails coming through from the students and saying, wow, you're great. You're really helping me out. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to close this deal, or thanks for giving me clarity. She saw all that. And I think she said, you know what? I like life coaching. I want to start doing it. How do I do it? So it's important that you're really conscious about what you're thinking and how you're actually, resonating with that other person.
Right. No, because this all goes into the trust. So how are we earning each other's trust? Because if I'm coming to you, if he's coming to me excited and I'm not interested, well, eventually he's just not going to come to me, and he's going to go to someone else and be excited, with another group of people. And that's my fault, So this is something that it's a choice that we have to make, and we have to be aware of how we're reacting to something that's being said to us, and by who. If it's, the most important person in our life, our spouse, then that's something that we have to sit and think, what has to change? What has to change in our relationship, in our communication, to better it, so that we can actually, be excited for each other.
Keep going. You're on a roll.
So, I don't know. I guess the good news is that we have a choice, and we have to decide what kind of communication that we want.
What kind of communication do you want?
Well, I want to be able to tell you things without you yelling at me. I want to be able to tell you things without you overreacting. I want you to do the same. And that's the thing, is we always think about what I want, but what are you asking? And am I listening to that? Am I saying, okay, I will change my ways because I want you to have the communication that you want as well?
I think that's important, though. You have to understand, like, I overreacted last night when I came in and said something to Michael. You have to understand where I was coming from, though. So,
yes,
so sometimes
definitely.
I had a rough day. It was 11 hours. I was tired.
Sure.
I hear Michael complaining about something, and I just, and then I said something to him, and he went off on me. And it's like, okay, hold on, time out. I didn't mean to say that.
Right.
What people say is about them. What you hear is about you. I mean, I didn't mean to get angry or anything. I was just a little tired, and I may have overreacted a little bit.
That's
and
a
my
good
son
example.
Perpetuated that.
Exactly. That's a good example too, because it's something important when your spouse can come into or the kids or somebody comes into the house, obviously in a bad mood. Are you doing things to make it worse for them? Or are you actually going to be like, I don't know, did something happen today? I want to know about it. You're going to be that person that they want to come home to make things better, to help them make things better.
I love that. So I think one action step that I like everyone to take right now is we've done a couple podcasts with Chris Voss, Wrote the book, Never Split the Difference. He's an amazing negotiator. I don't want to say that our relationship is about negotiating, but maybe you need some kind of tactics on how to be able to speak to somebody, on how to present your side of the story, on how to have the DJ voice when you want to be in control, right? Or you want to have tactile empathy, or all those strategies that he talks about in the book. It's a great way to start building rapport with others. When you read the book, it's excellent for real estate investors because you're trying to get a deal done, and it's not always being confrontational. What you can say, and that what we've used in our lives, is how can we work together to get this done, instead of, no, I can't buy it at that, I need to buy it at this price. How can we work together? We both want to get the deal done. What can we do? So that's one way of communication. So communication, negotiation is huge.
Right.
So let's look at those two podcasts. If you go on jakeandgina.com, under our podcast, search for Chris Voss, listen to those two podcasts. I will guarantee you they are worth their weight in gold. He's an amazing speaker. And on top of that, read the book, Never Split the Difference. It was an awesome book.
Yeah. Real quick, Gina, I have a question for you. Okay, so tell me how happiness at home affects your business and even your relationships outside the home.
Well, how happiness at home affects, vice versa. So there's no such thing as, I think, a work-life balance. Sometimes you need to work harder. Sometimes you need to be at home more. All that I've learned in my life is if you can ultimately do something that you like at work, you're going to be home a lot more. You're going to get home a lot more fulfilled. You're going to be a lot happier. What did I do today during lunch? When I came in for lunch, I was excited. I was pumped. So we had a great lunch today. We sat down. We all joked around. We had wings. We had blue cheese dressing over there. We were fooling around. We were having jokes.
Well, my question was, how does being happy at home affect you at work?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. So when I'm really happy at home and I'm engaged at home, when I'm on the phone with students, or I'm on the phone with Josh, or I'm on the phone with somebody else, I'm more engaged. So that's important to gauge yourself. Happiness comes from yourself also, but your situations and being conscious and being aware. And my wife talks about choices. We all have choices. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to be sad. You can choose anything. And if you can,
and every situation we're put in is an opportunity to grow. Every situation, even if it's that, your husband comes home angry and, yells at your son for something that didn't actually happen. That's an opportunity for me to say, okay, let me look at the whole situation before I overreact. So it's important. And that's something also that would be great if everyone could do, is notice their situation, notice what opportunity you have. Those little things really do make a difference, and because they lead up to something great, so it's important to notice how you are, how you react to certain things.
So how do you want to wrap this thing up? We've got a couple other questions.
There's one more question I would love to answer, because it's a good one.
Melissa asks, my husband is sick of me talking about real estate. What parameters do you guys set around business chats? I have a 6-year-old. How do you get your kids involved in business? So let's think about parameters that you set around the business chats.
Yeah. So my first question would be, do you talk about real estate all the time?
Do I? I talk about more. I talk about more Jake and Gino community. I don't talk about diving into it, but I think for me, it's really important to talk a lot about business, because I want my kids to be financially savvy.
Sure.
They don't all need to go into business, but they need to know how money works.
And they need to know the positive and negatives, I would think. So it's good to see my husband get frustrated with something that doesn't work, because the kids see that, and I think that's important.
Well, when I go out with the kids, or I go for a walk with them, or I'm in the pool with them, I'll always ask what they want to talk about, because it's about them. But we're at the dinner table, I'll talk about what we're doing with the community, how we're going to Tennessee, how we're going to do the Multifamily Mastery Live in October with 600 investors there. It's exciting. They're going to be selling swag at the event. That's what's exciting. So
this is also the question. Really, is if your husband thinks you're talking too much about real estate, maybe you are. That's my point. It could be right. So maybe it's like, well, what does he want to talk about? And that's one of the communication things.
That's a great point. What do you want to talk about? Exactly. Exactly. So what are his hobbies? What are his interests?
Right. And also be engaging, because that's, if he's listening to you constantly, maybe it's time that you notice that.
So that is one of the reasons why I think my wife went into life coaching, because I think she saw how much I liked it, right? And how much I was helping people out. And maybe I was speaking and talking a lot about it and being positive about it.
Well, I saw the positive. Exactly. I saw the people who, you made a difference, and that was incredible to me. So that's why I went into it.
So how do you get your 6-year-old involved in the business?
I can tell you what I've seen. I've seen the game Cash Flow, not the kid one, the adult version. My kids played it for years with my husband. I've never played it before. I always had a baby trying to attack it, and it's not the cheapest game, so try to keep them away. But I've seen them learn a lot from it, right?
I love Cash Flow because it talks about income statement and balance sheets. It talks about doodads. It talks about you need to buy this or should you put your money away and invest, all that stuff. I think the other game that you need to play is Monopoly. Monopoly is the easiest game to play. Unfortunately, it's a zero-sum game. If I win, you lose, and that's not how life is. That's the only thing I hate about Monopoly. You're buying houses and turning them into hotels. That's great, but somebody's got to win and everyone else loses. That's not how life is. That's not how real estate is.
Right.
Cash flow is sort of the same way. Everyone else wins, but at the same time, you're buying deals, you're having fun, you're teaching them about stocks and about alternative assets. So I think both of them are good.
But just being around, I think just having them be around the business in general, seeing the good things, seeing the bad things, seeing if they could help with anything, you know, even if it's something tiny that he could color or something, just to be part of it, I think really, really helps just to see them.
As they get older, my son is calling investors up to schedule the meetings for us. He's calling up the students just to sign them up for the boot camps. Get them involved. Let them get on the phone. It's important that you create that social skill for them. That emotional intelligence is really important. And sometimes they don't teach that in school. That's incumbent upon us as parents to teach them that. And that's one of the most important skills that they can learn. If they can build rapport and they can be liked by others, that's a really important skill. So teach them that.
And also just to ask them, say, hey, what do you think of this? This is what I'm doing. This is my job. For years, my kids really didn't know what my husband did. It was easy back in the day when he owned a restaurant, you know, but then all of a sudden he's Jake and Gina. What is that? The kids were like, I'm not really sure. That's what their answer was. He did own a restaurant though. So, it's important that they actually know what you do. I know that sounds silly, but sometimes we forget to explain it.
And I'm going to give everybody a tip here as a parent. I would have every parent let their children go work for somebody else, even if you own your own business. Because my kids worked at the restaurant and grandma was the boss and they sat down, they had longer dinners. My cousins would come in and it was work and they loved it, but it's different than when you go work for somebody else and you're on their clock and you're getting paid by somebody else. So my son is working at a restaurant now and it's hard. And I want him to work because it's tiring work. And I don't want him to become a low income work earner. That's not where his head is. He's like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So let them come to that realization that they need to build skills and they need to go, whether it's school or get a different job, but let them go work for somebody else.
That's good advice.
So
this is a good podcast. I like this one.
It's all about communication. I didn't cut her off. That was the thing. You see, I took my time. I did not cut her off. Let's recap this really quick. I think the foundation is to start with listening. Those three types of listening: the subjective, the active, and the intuitive. All three of those. Where are you resonating at right now? Can you do some intuitive listening? I know you all can do it out there. Stop and think. Start to communicate better with your spouse by listening to what they want. It's not always what's in it for me. What's in it for us? What do you want to speak about? Let's speak real estate 50-50, and what do you want to speak about? You may not be able to split it down the middle, but at least be aware that if you're speaking about it all the time, you're wearing the other partner out. I think the other thing that Julia said that was really important for me is sharing the success of your spouse. When she gets off a coaching call, I want to know how that went. I want to know if she really, crushed it. I want to know, if she made any progress with the student, if she has any questions about any skills that she needs to get better on, because she can always come to the GDad, right? And ask him. She hates it when people call me the GDad, but that's okay.
I don't hate it.
But what I'm saying is that
I just won't call him that.
I want to share in that success with her, right? Because she had a great call. So tell me about the call. How did you, how did that person excel? I mean, what are the strategies you're using? Do you have any questions for me? So
the question that you have to ask yourself is, am I approachable? Am I letting my spouse or even my business partner or whoever, am I letting them come to me because they're going to trust that I'm not going to overreact, criticize, all that, and I'm going to listen and I'm not going to be critical. So that's important. So that's a question that we have to ask. And if we're not approachable, what has to change? That's something that we need to talk about.
So what we'd like to do is, if you have any questions for next week's podcast, leave them on the show notes down below. We'd love to answer any questions. Next week, we're going to be bringing on somebody named Jim Shields, great friend of ours. He has something called, his strategy is great. It's called a board meeting with your children. He's got a company called 18 Summers. You're going to love the podcast. But for the time being, please leave any questions. We'll love to answer questions on that podcast. Julia, I want to thank you for being on with me. I want to thank everybody for listening. And until next time, let's all go make it happen.